7 shell casings, 20 rounds claimed, and a woman who will not say why. Sit down. Close the door. Because what I am about to walk you through tonight is not celebrity gossip. This is an active cover-up unraveling in real time. And by the end of this, you are going to understand exactly who benefits from your confusion. Now, before a single name leaves my mouth, I need you to understand something that changes everything about how you consume this story. The people telling you this was a random stalker attack, they need you to believe that. They need you to file it under crazy fan and move on to the next headline. Because the moment you stop moving, the moment you actually sit still and trace the connections I am about to lay out, you will see a web so precise, so deliberately constructed, that calling it coincidence requires more faith than calling it conspiracy. And I have receipts. Not rumor, not theory. Documented, time-stamped, cross-referenced facts that I am placing side by side for the first time. Because nobody else will touch this. And I think you already know why. Let us begin where nobody expects. Not at the mansion, not at the arrest. Let us begin with the documents. Weeks before a single bullet ripped through the gates of a Beverly Crest estate, the United States government dropped millions of pages of the Epstein files into the public domain. Not a leak, not a hack, an official, mandated transparency release. FBI crisis intake reports, phone logs spanning years, personal correspondence between some of the most powerful people on the planet. And buried inside those millions of pages, a name appeared that sent shockwaves through certain circles. Circles that have the resources to make problems disappear before breakfast. Rihanna. Her name sits inside Jeffrey Epstein's meticulously maintained call logs. Now hold on. Before you react, I need to be surgically precise here, because precision is the only armor that separates what I do from reckless accusation. A name in a phone log does not equal criminal involvement. The Department of Justice has been explicit about that. Epstein contacted thousands of people. His web touched everyone from scientists to senators. A call log entry is a data point, not an indictment. But here is what makes that data point detonate. Because timing is not just important in this story. Timing is the story. Weeks after those documents went public, on a quiet Sunday afternoon in one of the most secure neighborhoods in Los Angeles, a 35-year-old woman named Ivana Lizette Ortiz pulled up to a specific mansion in Beverly Crest. Not a random house. She knew exactly where she was going. She raised a semi-automatic rifle, an AR-15 according to recovery reports, and unleashed sustained, deliberate fire into the property. Round after round after round. Into a home where children were sleeping. Babies. 5 months old. 3 years old. Infants who did not choose to be born into whatever nightmare was unfolding around them. And here is where you need to swallow hard. Inside that property were 10 people. Rihanna, one of the most famous women breathing air on this planet. A billionaire. A cultural monument. She was inside an Airstream trailer on the grounds. ASAP Rocky was asleep beside her. Their children were in the main house with Rihanna's mother, household staff, and visiting neighbors. 10 human beings in the crosshairs of someone who knew the address, knew the layout, and knew the schedule. Those bullets punched through the front gate, through the exterior wall, through a parked vehicle in the driveway, and through the windshield of the Airstream trailer where Rihanna had been standing seconds earlier. Not minutes. Seconds. A matter of heartbeats between a shooting and a homicide, between a news cycle and a global funeral. If she had lingered in that spot for 3 more breaths, we would not be having this conversation. The entire planet would look different right now. But wait. Because what happened next is what keeps me awake at 3 in the morning. When police arrested Ortiz less than an hour later at the Sherman Oaks Galleria, she was still carrying the rifle and extra loaded magazines. She had not fled. She had not ditched the weapon. She had not even changed her appearance. She was just sitting there, in a public shopping mall, like someone waiting to be collected, or like someone for whom escape was never part of the arrangement. And when the officers approached, she gave them one sentence. Listen to this very carefully. She said, quote, "I would like to say that I was not attempting to harm someone," end quote. Read that again. A woman who fired approximately 20 rounds into an occupied home, who struck the windshield directly in front of where a billionaire mother was standing with her partner, told police she was not trying to hurt anyone. That sentence is not panic. That is not a woman having a mental breakdown in the back of a squad car. That is measured. It is precise. It is almost rehearsed. That is the language of someone who was briefed on what to say when the situation went sideways. And if you do not see the difference between an emotional outburst and a prepared statement, then you are exactly where certain people want you to be. But I am not done with that sentence. Not even close. Because it connects to something the LAPD has refused to explain, and their refusal tells its own story. Weeks after the arrest, weeks after the arraignment, weeks after this woman's entire professional life was incinerated, the LAPD still says, and I quote, "The motive is under investigation." You know what that phrase actually means? That phrase is a locked door with armed guards on the other side. That is not a progress update. That is a firewall. And firewalls only get built when the thing behind them is more dangerous, exposed than hidden. Now, hold that thought, because I need to take you through the legal machinery that activated overnight after this shooting. Because the speed alone tells you everything about who this system is designed to protect. Ortiz now faces 14 criminal charges, including attempted homicide. Her bail was set at $1,875,000. When her defense team had the audacity to request a reduction to $70,000, the judge denied it without blinking. Prosecutor Alexander Bott stood up and told that courtroom something that is now permanently etched into the public record. He said she plotted the attack in advance, that she fired roughly 20 rounds into a residential neighborhood, that her actions could have easily resulted in multiple homicides. Multiple homicides. A prosecutor does not use that phrase for dramatic effect. That is a legal assessment based on trajectory analysis, the number of human beings in and around the property, and the rate of fire capability of the weapon. The judge agreed. Bail stayed at nearly $2 million. And then, within weeks, the California Board of Speech-Language Pathology revoked her professional license. She had held that license since April 2016. It was not scheduled to expire until June 2027. More than 11 years of professional standing. Education. Examinations. Supervised practice. Continuing education. All of it erased preemptively. Before a trial. Before a conviction. Before a single juror heard a single word. At the direct and urgent request of the state attorney general. So let me get this straight, because the contrast here is screaming and nobody seems to hear it. The system moved overnight to destroy this woman's professional identity. The system moved within hours to set bail so high she may never see daylight before trial. But this same system, this same hyper-efficient, lightning-fast apparatus, still cannot tell us why she did it. That is not a coincidence. That is architecture. And I am about to show you the blueprint. Now, here is where I need to take you somewhere deeply uncomfortable. And I am going to be completely transparent about the evidentiary status of what I am about to share, because that is the only way I operate. What I am about to tell you is not confirmed. It is circulating from multiple independent and unrelated sources with enough consistency that ignoring it would be journalistic malpractice. The rumor, and I am explicitly labeling it a rumor because that is what it currently remains, states that while in custody, Ivana Ortiz told investigators she was paid $20,000 to execute the shooting, and that the person who arranged and funded that payment was Jay-Z. I need you to let that settle. Do not react yet. Let it marinate. Because the implications of that claim, if it contains even a fragment of truth, rewrite the entire narrative of what happened that Sunday afternoon. The rumor further attributes this knowledge to A$AP Rocky, the man who was lying flat inside that Airstream when the bullets hit, the father of Rihanna's children. And here's the part that makes this a cage with no exit. Rocky is signed to Roc Nation, Jay-Z's label, Jay-Z's empire, the machine that controls Rocky's releases, his touring, his industry standing, his financial oxygen. Picture this for a moment. You are lying on the ground. Bullets are punching through the walls around you. The woman you love is inches away. Your children are screaming in the building next door. Your mother-in-law is trying to shield them. And according to these reports, you already know who sent the woman with the rifle. You already know whose money paid for this. And that person is the same man who controls whether your next album sees the light of day or rots in a vault. The same man whose legal team could bury you in litigation for the next decade. The same man whose network touches every corridor of the industry you depend on for survival. What do? Do you speak and lose everything? Or do you stay silent and lose yourself? Because if these reports hold any water, Rocky was not just caught in a random attack. He was dropped into the most impossible trap a human being can face, where every direction leads to a different species of destruction. And here is the connection that mainstream media absolutely refuses to pull on. Listen to this. A$AP Rocky was represented in 2025 by attorney Joe Tacopina. Tacopina has appeared as a recurring legal guest on a celebrity gossip program hosted by Harvey Levin. Harvey Levin, the same man who was named in the released Epstein files as a good friend of Jeffrey Epstein. That is not my theory. That is documented public record. But it gets tighter. Tacopina operates within a legal network that includes Alex Spiro. Spiro currently serves as Jay-Z's primary legal counsel, defending Roc Nation in multiple matters. And Spiro's career trajectory reads like a conspiracy thriller written by someone trying too hard to be obvious. Before Jay-Z, Spiro represented Harvey Weinstein. Before that, Jeffrey Epstein personally sought Spiro's legal services through a chain of correspondence that traced through a former Obama White House counsel. Let me say that chain out loud because every single link matters. Epstein connects to Spiro. Spiro connects to Tacopina. Tacopina connects to Rocky. Rocky connects to Roc Nation. Roc Nation is Jay-Z. And Jay-Z connects to the shooting through those persistent, unconfirmed reports. Every name touches the next. Every professional relationship is verifiable. The question is not whether these people know each other. They demonstrably do. The question is what travels through those connections. What instructions pass through those handshakes. And whether anyone in that chain had advanced knowledge of a plan to silence someone whose name had just surfaced in the most dangerous document release in modern American history. Now I need to take you back to the crime scene because there is an evidentiary discrepancy that gnaws at the foundation of the official story. The prosecutor told the judge Ortiz fired roughly 20 rounds. That is his sworn statement in open court. But police only recovered 7 shell casings from the scene. 7. And neighbors who dialed 911 reported hearing approximately 10 shots. 20. 10. 7. Those numbers do not belong in the same zip code. That is not a rounding error between 18 and 20. That is a chasm wide enough to swallow the prosecution's credibility whole. Either the prosecutor deliberately inflated the shot count to justify extreme bail conditions, or physical evidence was not properly recovered from the scene, or some of those rounds impacted in locations that have not been disclosed to the public, or there is a fourth possibility that nobody is discussing because it opens a door nobody wants to walk through. Any one of those cracks the official story. And in a case involving a victim of this magnitude, under this much media scrutiny, how do you fail to reconcile the bullet count? That is Forensics 101. Count the casings. Count the impact sites. Make them match. When they do not match, document why. Nobody has documented why. And that silence sounds exactly like every other silence in this case. Deliberate. Now let me expose something about the shooter profile that the stalker narrative conveniently buries. Because the stalker theory is comfortable, it requires no further investigation. It closes the book on a story that powerful people desperately need closed. Yes, Ortiz had social media posts expressing anger toward Rihanna. Yes, she made false claims about the singer's health. Yes, she had prior arrests in Florida. She fits the obsessed fan profile if you are looking at this from 30,000 feet and squinting. But stalkers follow predictable behavioral patterns that have been documented across decades of criminal psychology research. They crave recognition. They leave manifestos. They record videos. They tag targets online. They broadcast their intentions to the world because the world acknowledging their pain is the entire point. Ortiz exhibited none of those behaviors during the attack. She arrived. She fired. She attempted to leave. No manifesto. No social media victory lap. No video confession. No message to anyone. Just a weapon, sustained fire, and one polished sentence that sounded like it was drafted in a law office. That is not how stalkers operate. That is how contractors operate. Task execution without performance. And here is the thought that haunts me. If you needed to hire someone for something like this, would you not specifically choose someone who already had a visible online obsession with the target? Someone whose digital footprint could be retroactively packaged as evidence of an escalating lone wolf obsession? Someone who, upon arrest, gets filed under disturbed fan rather than paid operative? I am not asserting that happened. I am asserting the evidence does not rule it out, and neither does the LAPD, because they are still investigating the motive. Remember? The Epstein files contained far more than Rihanna's name. FBI crisis intake reports from 2019, originating from the National Threat Operations Center, named Jay-Z directly. A caller alleged she had been incapacitated and awoke in what she believed was Epstein's Florida mansion with Jay-Z present during an assault. These are raw, unverified FBI tips. The DOJ has warned the files contain potentially fabricated submissions. Jay-Z faces no charges from these reports. But these tips sitting alongside the shooting, alongside the timeline of the document release, alongside the payment rumor, and alongside the legal web, I could just create a convergence that no legal disclaimer can neutralize. Because investigations are built on patterns. And this pattern sharpens with every new piece of information. And there is another name buried in those tips that orbits the same gravitational center. Pusha T, a Rock Nation artist, referenced as an alleged handler in one unverified filing. Unconfirmed, but circling the same axis. Now consider the broader context of what has been happening across the entertainment industry in the past 2 years. The Diddy case, the federal raids, the arrests, the systematic exposure of powerful men who built empires on silence, leverage, and fear. When someone sat on camera and said he is the acceptable monster at this time, and then asked who is next, that was not a random observation. That was someone who understood the rotation. R. Kelly was the last cycle. Diddy was this one. And the question that echoes through every green room, every recording studio, every back-channel conversation in this industry is whether the next name on that list is already circulating inside federal buildings. Because the Diddy case proved what the entertainment industry spent decades denying. These networks exist. They are protected. They operate in daylight because the system profits from their existence. And once that door cracked open, once the public saw that a mogul could be handcuffed and charged, the idea that another mogul might be next stopped being fantasy and started being mathematics. Now consider the jurisdictional dynamics. The shooting lives in state court, California, LAPD, but the Epstein files are federal. The FBI tips are federal. Witness intimidation questions are federal. And federal investigations operate on different timelines, different rules, and different immunity levels to outside influence. If the FBI is already tracing how Jay-Z's name appears in those documents, if they are examining the connections between the document release and the shooting timeline, then the California case is the visible surface. The real investigation may be moving beneath it. And that gap between state visibility and federal silence is precisely where the most dangerous tension in this story lives. Remember what Jaguar Wright was saying months before any of this happened. She was on podcasts, on live streams, on every platform that would have her, naming names and describing exactly this kind of industry power structure. People dismissed her as bitter. They called her unstable. They waved off every word she said. And then the Epstein files dropped. And then the shooting happened. And suddenly, everything she described about how power operates in that world did not sound delusional anymore. It sounded like a warning that nobody took seriously until a rifle was aimed at a Beverly Crest mansion. The system reveals itself through what it chooses not to say. Simple cases get solved publicly. Complicated cases get careful updates. Cases that threaten the powerful get buried in silence. The LAPD chose silence. And that choice is not incompetence. It is a confession. Let me crystallize exactly where we stand right now. There is a woman in a Los Angeles County jail cell facing the rest of her life behind bars. She is the only living bridge between the trigger and whoever funded the operation, if anyone did. She is capable of flipping overnight and converting rumor into sworn testimony. Or she is capable of absorbing a sentence that was meant for someone with far more to lose. There are millions of pages of documents still being analyzed, connections still being mapped, names still being cross-referenced against flight logs, financial records, and communication metadata. And there is a man at the center of every whispered report, still free, still powerful, still controlling an empire that generates its own gravitational pull. One phone call away from a federal summons that could rewrite everything the world thinks it knows about him. The real conspiracy is not that someone may have ordered this attack. The real conspiracy is that the system is designed, from the ground up, to let one expendable person absorb the consequences while everyone above them walks in sunlight. History tells us that theory is correct far more often than it is wrong. Here's what keeps me up at night. That woman in that cell knows the answer to every question I raised tonight. She knows if she acted alone or followed orders. She knows if money changed hands. She knows if that single sentence she gave police was her own words or someone else's script. She holds the key to the entire architecture. And every morning she wakes up in that cell, she faces one calculation. Is the person she is protecting worth spending the rest of her life in a concrete box for? Because that is the math. The only math that matters now. And the people at the top of that chain, the ones with the lawyers and the labels and the billions and the Epstein connections, they are running calculations too. Different math. They are computing how long silence can hold, how much loyalty costs when the price keeps climbing, and what happens when the cost of freedom becomes cheaper than the cost of keeping a secret. Something is going to crack. Pressure like this does not hold forever. It finds the weakest point and it breaks through. The bullet count discrepancy. A witness who decides to talk. A federal filing that surfaces without warning. A plea deal that makes silence more expensive than truth. When it breaks, everything I just showed you is going to look like it was obvious all along. And you are going to remember this moment. You are going to remember that someone laid it out for you before the headlines caught up. This story is still in its opening act. The next chapter is coming. And when it lands, it is going to shake foundations that certain people spent decades building. That is not a prediction. That is the trajectory of evidence. And evidence does not care who it takes down. Drop your thoughts below. Does she talk? Does the federal layer break through the surface? Does the bullet count become the fracture that splits this entire case wide open? Because the cracks are already forming. And once they start, they do not stop. More is coming. And when it drops, you are going to want to be right here. Trust that.